Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Trainers Forum. This is a presentation of HRD Specialized Canine Training, and our guest host tonight is Brad Dennis from The Searcher. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
All right. Well, hey, it is truly an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and host not only for your show, which has been a godsend to an awful lot of us during this crazy year that we've all been living through, but it is an honor just because I get to call you friend as well. So Paul, aka the Professor, the individual that is putting science back into our business. And along in doing so, he is making each and every one of us better searchers and better handlers. And that much is greatly appreciated by each and every one of us. But tonight you have a very special presentation for us. So as we get kicked off into this, please keep your sound muted if you don't mind. So that way we don't have to hear Ellen going to the bathroom, because we know that Ellen will try to go to the bathroom at some point in time during all of this. But by all means, post your comments as well as your questions in the chats, whether it's the chat in Zoom or on Facebook. And as we get to the end of this, we will start posing some questions back at Paul. But tonight's topic is all about, are you sabotaging your training? And if so, how do we recognize it and what do we do about it? So Paul, without further ado, we are going to kick that over to you, Mr. Professor. Take it away.
Thank you, Brad. I will have to take this moment real quick, though, and point out to everybody that Brad has The Searcher. You can find that at thesearcher.net. He offers a wonderful series of webinars. Hopefully, he will have those back up and going after the first of the year. And so please check that out. And I am equally as blessed to be able to call him my friend. So tonight's topic. Well, tonight's topic is a difficult one because it's one we don't like to face a lot of times. And that's, because are we sabotaging our training? Before I get into that, though, I've got to go back and point out our new cover winner for the HRD Specialized Canine Training Facebook page. That was presented by Sherry Kenton. And not only does she get the recognition of Breezy to be on our Facebook page this year, she gets one in-person seminar this year, 100% tuition free. So Sherry, I wanted to say thank you for this wonderful photo. It's a tribute to the dedication to the hard work that you have put into your dogs over the years. So with that, make sure you check out our Facebook page. But let's get into this more difficult, more personal matter. Are you sabotaging your training? Okay. With that, what does that look like? Okay. I know about self-sabotage because I'm a master at it. I try to set my clock early and I still wind up late. I do all kinds of things that level of success that I might otherwise, be able to achieve. But the question is, and what I want you to really think about, what are your behaviors doing to sabotage that? When we look at self-sabotage, what is it really? Okay. Well, I liked this definition from Healthline the best. And it says self-sabotage refers to the behaviors or thought patterns that hold you back and prevent you from doing what you want to do. And we come into those behavior patterns, those uh, thoughts throughout our daily life. That's not just in our dog training. And but the key thing I want you to take away is that it's behaviors and thought patterns. These are two distinct, separate realms. That's a great point, Joy. Sabotage, not sticking to training plans, not trusting the dog enough. Well, that's a great way to look at it, but it's more than that. How do we sabotage our training? Well, let's take a look at it behavior wise first. What are some of the behaviors that we sometimes enact or take part in, either, unconsciously, typically unconsciously, um, that we set up to, help ourselves in other realms before. But with this, we're looking at behaviors that are self defeating. We want to be able to train this dog and be a resource to our community. But are we truly meeting the time commitment? Are we going out there and putting forth the time, effort, and energy? Are we meeting that? Okay. Are we setting up problems that are truly challenging ourselves and our dogs? Or are we just going out, throwing things out into the field and saying, "Oh, my dog had odor. That's good." Okay. Um, Other behaviors. Are we allowing our dog to treat us like a cheap date? Okay. A lot of you, if you've ever been to one of my seminars, you've probably heard me ask somebody that. Okay. I've asked, why are you being a cheap date? Well, what does that actually look like for our dog? Well, that's because the dog isn't all the way into the sit, and that's the train final response behavior we want is the sit, but we go ahead and we mark it. We're anticipating the behavior too soon, and we mark it, or we go ahead and pay out the reward. Okay. We're not getting the full dinner movie, if that makes sense. The other thing with it, have we actually sat down and recognized truthfully where our dogs are? And that gets into more of our thought patterns. One of the memes that runs around Facebook a lot over the last couple of months has been about advanced handlers want to work fundamentals, whereas beginner handlers want to work advanced problems or challenging problems. So that's more of a thought pattern type process. And again, if you've been to any of our seminars through HRD Specialized Canine Training, you will see a lot of times we spend a lot of times on our fundamental training behaviors of the odor recognition, of the train final response, of the reward systems, of making sure we have the timing. And sometimes we're using problems that we have sliced down thin enough so we can only address, or where we can only address one little microcosm in time of what we're actually trying to achieve. Obviously, our grand big goal is to be able to have this nice trained dog that has odor recognition, has a solid trained final response, understands that doesn't matter when it's coming, mom or dad is going to pay me. Okay. So, thought pattern. It's okay to slow things down. We don't have to, we're not running the Kentucky Derby here, okay? We're not running the Kentucky Derby. It's fast as what, 2.5 miles or so? No. Think of this as more about like the New York or the Boston Marathon, okay? It's one thing to start the Boston Marathon, but it's another thing to finish that marathon. It's just like Brad oftentimes will sign up and go out and run an ultra marathon, an endurance race, and too many times life gets in the way and prevents him from properly training. But it's his thought pattern that makes him successful in it. It's his thought pattern saying, even though I haven't done that training, it's that I will not quit, that allows him to be successful. Let me see what our chats are. Exactly, Brad. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay. So we've got to change this mindset of hurry up. Let's get to the end now. Let's get our dog to that certified state. Or now that I've got a dog that is certified, am I truly ready to go out and do a search? Oftentimes, the answer, when we truly take a step back and look at it, the answer is no. So we've got to get some thought pattern changes going on. But one of the more critical questions that we have to answer oftentimes, why do we self-sabotage? Why do we do that? Is it because you know we truly are in it for the glory and we want the excitement and thrill of getting out there? But it's also sometimes a lack of confidence, as Alan points out. Um, Sometimes, even though we can be successful, we have a fear of success, and therefore it's a fear of failure too, because we don't want to put that risk out there. And we've all experienced that at some point in time with something we've faced in life. You know, a lot of those type things, we first start seeing those pop up when we're in middle school. Not so much when we're younger, but when we're in middle school. Okay. Um, that's a perfect answer, Jan. People don't want to get out um, of their comfort zone. Lisa writes over from Facebook, if your ground floor isn't solid, there will be a letdown in advanced problems. Trust your dog, but also trust yourself. Well, part of how do we develop that trust in ourselves? Okay. How do we get to that trust in ourselves? Well, that comes through that training. That comes through that slicing everything down to these little thin sections so that we can indeed have success. So, whose fault is failure? Is it the dog's fault? Is it the instructor's fault? Is it the certifying official's fault? Well, if we are not achieving the things that we want to achieve with our dogs, the weakest link usually tends to be us. We've got to look at ourselves first. Um, a lot of times that failure is ours. Well, where is that failure coming from? Well, piss poor, piss poor performance is due to poor preparation and practice. We have failure. Part of it could be simply we don't have enough reps in. We don't have those basics as mastered as we truly think we do. Okay. I like Hannah's sometimes comes from an overconfidence in abilities where there isn't enough history or knowledge in an area of skill. As Brad picked at me about being the professor, so to speak, and trying to encourage the science and so forth, that's a journey that I've been on for a long time now. And part of this is sometimes we don't have that knowledge base. And it's not so much a knowledge base of the dog. You and your dog could be great partners. But if we don't understand what's actually occurring in the environment or have a better understanding of what's actually going on in the decomposition process, then we can start seeing some of that success decline. Okay. So over on Facebook, um, I like a couple of these comments. Training to time instead of training to the standard. Well, it's not just a matter of training to the standard, it's training beyond the standard. Again, I'm going to reiterate something Lisa points out. Our canine partners can only accomplish what we clearly train them to do. If we haven't provided them the opportunity to succeed or see this type of situation in our training, well, whose fault is that? Part of it, it could be a search that is completely out of our wheelhouse. And that's where, you know, hopefully over this last year, with the Trainers Forum, you've been introduced to some additional resources in the likes of Brad Dennis, in the likes of Lisa Higgins, in the likes of Jen Harakawa, in the likes of Greg Cole, to be able to reach out uh, and ask them for advice, for help, for guidance. Okay. Ownership. When we look at failure, one of the big things we have to talk about is ownership. And that's, you know, kind of harping back or reflecting back to Brad's session with us and asking, what is your why? And the difference between being a search and rescue team, a search and rescue canine handler, and truly being a professional in what you are trying to accomplish. You know, and it's that extreme pursuit of that ownership that we have to take. And once we truly take a hold of some of that ownership, then we can start seeing some of these self-sabotaging behaviors subside. Okay. And that's what brings us into success. Um, so how do we find success in training? Every time we go out with a plan. We have stated training objectives. Why do we have stated training objectives? Well, those stated training objectives, that gives us a goal for how we would like problems set up. It gives us an avenue in challenging ourselves and our dogs. Okay. With that, it's a matter of then implementing that training plan, implementing that objective, and holding us accountable, holding ourselves accountable. Okay. Which brings me back to the comment that Brad made here. on the Zoom feed. Once people stop making excuses, stop blaming others, and take ownership of everything in their lives, they're compelled to solve their problems. Well, having that training plan there helps us identify those problems easier. Being realistic with the success our dog had in training this week allows us to then set up our training goals for the next week. Donna makes a comment over on Facebook, train with purpose. And Jen says if they're stated, then you know if you've met them and what to work on if you have not. Training objectives determined by SAR team or handler, or both. Well, I think the team itself should have objectives, but you as the handler with your dog, you understand where you are with that dog better than anybody else. And so your training objectives have to be looked at, okay? And it's not so much a matter of getting the team on the same page. It's more a matter of getting the team as a whole to understand the importance of objectives and how do we achieve those objectives. And it goes back to that A to B to B to C, C to D. It's a step-by-step process. Okay? Um, exactly, Jan. Every dog will have different objectives. Some other things. After we have those stated training objectives and we're implementing them and we've been realistic, well, with those misses, with those falls, with those failures, well, then we have to go in and actually wood shop it, okay, or wood shed it. We got to take it out and work on it and practice it. Why were we not successful? Okay. And then, is it a lack of training for the dog? Or is it I didn't put the dog in the right position to be successful based upon the environmental conditions? Because I'm used to throwing a source out in a half acre and my dog always finds it and always does its train final response. But it's also the same source the dog has been working on for the past 6 months. And it's the predominant source the dog's always worked on. So we've got to make sure that not only are we trying to implement these things, we are putting variety with it. Well, hi, Z. Ziva just jumped up here beside me. Sorry. So, I know this is a holiday weekend, And I want to try to bring this to a close so we can truly open up for some questions. One of the things that a lot of y'all have heard me say is you've got to be intentionally intentional with it. Because everything that you do, as far as the dog is concerned, has value and has meaning. And if we don't recognize that as having value or having meaning to it, then why is the dog going to always provide value or what we are asking them to do? Okay. So in every action that we have with our dog, in our training, from the time we pull up at our training site to the time we leave our training site, we should have an understanding. We should have the understanding of what every single little step looks like from the time we get out of our car to the time we get the dog out, put the dog's vest on, give the dog its search command, to the time that we're paying the dog, to the time that we're putting the dog back up and we're headed home. One of the things I like to encourage handlers to do is sit down and write out that list, that step-by-step list of actions that you're going to take on your part, the actions that you want to see your dog take when you get the dog out and you start the dog, to the actions that you do with your dog after you have worked your training problem. Okay. It's then, after having written all of that down, we're going to hand that off to somebody and say, this is what it should look like. And they should be able to go through there and check off each one of those boxes, so to speak. Okay. And with that, a lot of times you'll find that, oh, I'm adding steps in there, or I'm completely skipping steps, or I'm doing things out of the order that I said I want to do them. Okay? So, to sum that up, every action has meaning. We have to make sure we take the approach to be intentionally intentional in our training. So, do you have any questions? I know I didn't take up the full hour, but I did go for about 30 minutes. Brad,
I'm trying
throwing
to
it
go
back
back
to you now.
through all of the questions on here, and as you were going through them, it seemed like you were answering them pretty well. Um, Here's one, though, that came out. This is from Ellen. Paul, shouldn't your training objectives be determined by where your dog is and what you see as a handler that needs work?
Your training objectives, part of it is where your dog is at the present time, but a part of it is also where you are hoping to take the dog. We need these benchmark assessments periodically in our training so that we can identify the weaknesses so that we can continue to push our training objectives.
No, that's perfect.
Because too often we get in a process or a rut of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I have a lot of people that say, oh, my dog doesn't like to do speed drills. No, it's not that the dog doesn't like doing speed drills. A lot of times it's you don't like doing speed drills and you feel that they are boring and you are not putting the effort or energy into making it engaging for the dog. So
Okay. One of the things that you kept mentioning and that other people have kind of talked about, and I just kind of want to bring some of that to this is, in our conversation, I guess it was a month ago or 2 months ago, when I asked everyone about their why. Understanding your why is so important, but also understanding what your mission is. Your mission is basically developed from your why. Your mission may have components to whatever your team is that you belong to, but it is still very important. So, what is your why? What is your mission? And then, what are the objectives that you have to develop that will allow you to meet or fulfill that mission? And once you understand those objectives, then you can take a step back and say, am I developing training plans and working those training plans to meet those objectives, which meets my mission, which fulfills my why? And that's basically how this thing goes full circle. So Ellen puts on here, so once you achieve a goal, push that to the next level? Or what do you do with it once you've achieved a goal?
always, always, yeah, if you're not challenging yourself or not challenging your dog through sound fundamentals, you're not going to achieve the success that you dream or desire to achieve. So all a goal is a point to measure ourselves by. That's why when we look at standards, okay, and most of these published standards, that's just a benchmark. You know, being asked to find, a source in a 1 acre area in 30 minutes and it's, you know, got any size to it. Well, that's great, but what is the actual search going to be that you're asked to do? It'd be wonderful if they were all 1 acre searches for a full body out there. Okay. That'd be wonderful. But the reality is, you know, you might be tasked with 5 acres, 10 acres. You never know. So you've got to have that, push to be more than just what the stated goal of a standard and so forth.
I think, Paul, that Jan had brought up a really good point in here when it came to developing those objectives, and essentially what she was trying to state is develop those objectives based upon the dog that you are working, the dog that is in front of you. In other words, bring the method to the dog rather than the dog to the method. But she goes on to stipulate and state for everyone, a single objective that you're trying to meet with your dog may take you, Paul, 2 steps for a dog that you have and 5 steps for the next dog that you have. It really is going to be dependent upon that dog. And so you have to be able to break it down for your dog's understanding, and then make sure that you have compliance back to that objective.
Very much so. That's sometimes one of the hardest things to face and accept when we are switching from that dog that is tried and true, and you've been out in the field on countless searches and you've done everything under the world, under the sun together, and around the world. But then you got that new dog. You got that puppy like we see here on the page. It's not necessarily going to be an automatic clone. And where the previous dog, as you stated, and as Jan stated, took 2 steps to accomplish it, that dog is, a 5-stepper, a 6-stepper. It's slicing it thin enough that you and the dog. And one of the things that I think sometimes with that is we forget about some of those growing pains, and where we think it might have only been 2 steps for one dog, it was still the 5 steps. We just don't remember the 5 steps. Okay.
You'll have to look on Facebook for me to see if any questions are.
Uh,
Is this going to be available for replay later tonight or later?
yes, it will be. It's always available on the Facebook page, and then this will get kicked over like all of our other trainers forum sessions get kicked over to YouTube. Good morning to Elmer over in Kabul, Afghanistan. Also from Facebook, yes, it's going to be available for what is your why? Yes, Lisa, perfect point. Um, each dog is its own personality, should not be compared to those that went before. Is it possible to slice your training plan too thin? Not necessarily, but that's part of that progression through our training plan and seeing, okay, well, maybe I can combine this a little bit faster than what I was wanting to, but also having to place those check marks in there that, oh, no, it's not quite as solid as I thought it was, and having that better understanding to go back.
So great question on there. It says, why is it so hard to see what's going on in your own dog versus someone else's?
Because we're too close to the situation. So a little story I'll share about Ziva when I first started working with her. Ziva was a retread. I say a retread in the fact that she was originally with another handler, and things broke down in their training program and so forth. And anyway, she came to my house, to my home, and after I'd given her some downtime, I started working her, and she was doing great with locating source, doing all of that. And I had worked on our train funnel response behavior separately from odor, which was supposed to be a down. Problem was, I wasn't necessarily seeing exactly what she was doing. I was just seeing that she was not getting it, in that she was finding the source, finding odor, but instead of downing there at the odor, she would come over and do the down in front of me. And it's like, I know it sounds very simple, but for whatever reason, I had a blind spot in place. And once I had somebody say, what she's actually doing is like a refund. It's like, oh, okay. I then understood I needed to separate out how we were actually getting to odor and separate out the timing of things. But it's always, too often, we're too close to the situation. Brad wrote the comment.
Yep.
Pablo Picasso once said, our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success.
So you have a couple of questions on here, Paul. This one is from Leslie Holt. What training log do you use? Paper or files on your computer? And did you create your own, or do you have training logs that you recommend?
As far as training logs go, I've got two that I recommend. One is a paper training log that was developed by Colette Falco and Craig Schultz in 2019 originally, and it's had some additional tweaks since then, and that is available. And then the other one is one that I created with Google Forms and is available on my cell phone. I can pull it up right there on my cell phone. I can fill in everything I need to with that on my cell phone and submit it to a Google Drive file where it populates into a spreadsheet, but also I've got the ability to have a single hard copy print off of that. And it's basically the same exact form that Colette and Craig had put together. So that's what I use. That's what I share with my classes, and we can make available here.
That would be awesome. There's another one on here. Do you have an example of a training plan? And if so, would you be willing to share what that is?
Yes, we've got some examples of training plans. I know over on Facebook that same question had come up, and I think Lisa actually stepped up and said she had a training plan she was willing to share with everybody. She also, Lisa makes this other comment, when you train a lot on your own, you don't always realize when you fall into bad habits. You need to train with someone willing to watch and help from time to time. We all experience that at some point. Yeah, that's very true, and that's why um, I do offer remote coaching, because it is a way that I can get eyes on dogs that I wouldn't normally see. I've also sent my own videos to people and said, here, watch this. What am I doing? What is my dog doing? Um, Jan calls those viewers spotters. You know, so I think it's a very critical thing to have is a spotter, somebody that can be objective in our training. Um, Call us out when we're being a cheap date. Call us out when we're not putting, our best foot forward. Um, Brad does that for me quite a bit. Is there a danger in having too many people helping you train? Sometimes, especially early on, sometimes I think that can be um, an issue. Um, my suggestion is um, you don't have to find trainers and handlers that are always going to be yes men, so to speak, that everything you're doing is great. We don't need that. But we also don't need trainers that every time they look at you, they want to change every single thing you're doing with your dog. Okay. Um, as we mature in this field, we get a feeling for, the good information and the bad information. Is it advisable to go to different trainers and get different points of view? Absolutely. Um, if nothing else, we can always learn something. If it's nothing more than I learned I don't want to do it that way. Um, One of the things that I like and love teaching about with the small group of trainers that I've been blessed to have as mentors and friends. But we teach together, and that's Lisa and Brad and Greg and Craig and Robin and Jen and so forth. The thing is that we all bring different strengths to the table. Most of the time, you will find us usually on the same page with our feedback to a handler. A lot of times, we'll even be in the same exact paragraph, same exact sentence. And that's because we do train together periodically. We teach together, not as much as we would have liked to in 2020, thanks to COVID. Um, but I think all of those um, trainers at the heart of it have the best interest for the handler, have the best interest for the dog, and understand the realities of what is being faced by our teams as they go out in the world.
Hey, Paul, Lisa has a
As
comment.
Lisa just chimed in,
Go ahead and read it.
too many different, sorry, too many different opinions before you have a good working relationship with your dog can be confusing to a new handler. You need to find someone that you understand and work well with. If you're confused, what does that do to your dog?
Absolutely, great point.
Okay. I think we've run the gamut of questions. I would like to close out, let you know that that shirt is in the shop. It is on sale. Couple of things for 2021. We've got monthly trainers forum set up with all new guests. We've got a new weekly live chat with Q&A. All new webinar series offerings with team and individual subscription plans available. We also have expanded in-person course offerings, and we're going to try to be in at least 15 different states across the country this year. Some great gear in the shop. Um, and you know, let us know. Let any one of our guests that we've had on the Trainers Forum this last year, how can we help you find your success? Okay. Um, Next month, we have Dr. Lauren DeGrief that's going to be speaking to us. She's coming from the Naval Research Lab there in Washington, D.C., and she will be talking to us about training aids for all different types of training disciplines and what her research has come to show with those things. Also, next time you'll see Brad and I together will be in March. That will be in Pensacola, Florida, for a water seminar. And then you'll see Lisa and Brad, myself and Greg, and so forth, down in Louisiana for the NNCDS annual seminar. So, also, as always, our monthly Trainers Forum recordings are posted there on our YouTube channel. We can find it a little bit easier now. Just go to HRD Specialized Canine Training. That'll pull that up. And if you have any additional questions, please email me. please check out the website. Brad, as always, I am humbled to get to work with you. Thank from Facebook.
Okay, I think you dropped. Nope, you're moving again. I see your head moving. It was a pleasure, my friend, and I am humbled as well to be a part of this. So thank you very much. And to each and every one of you, I hope and I pray for a very prosperous and very healthy new year.
Thank you all. Stay safe. And if you can't see, don't lick anything. That's my new sign from Michelle. Happy New Year.
Bye, guys.